Okay. So a very good morning, guys. Can you let me know if you can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Can hear, can see. Yeah. Right. So today, guys, we're going to do the past papers from the area of credit creation. So it's a bit of a difficult area when it comes to unit number 7. So at the end of unit number 7, you have this whole part called commercial banks. And under commercial banks, we talk a little bit about the functions of commercial banks, the objectives of commercial banks, and then we move into credit creation. So that is the part that I want to focus on today. And today we'll get all the credit creation related questions done. Okay. So I've shared the PDF tute with you as well, but even if you have not done the questions, we'll do it together. Right? I will not be going a lot fast, but I will not be teaching the basic theory, Lamai. But what I will be doing is we will do all the questions so that you all understand how the story works. Okay, so give me a couple of minutes until I get my screen shared and we can get started then. Hmm. Okay, so this is the area that we have, and we'll start with this. So we'll go through the MCQs first, like we usually do, and then we'll move on to the essay questions. I want you all to give me answers on the chat box also. So depending on how much of answers I get, then I understand how have you all figured this out. So, and then I can figure out how much to explain. Okay, so we'll get started without wasting any time so that we can finish this as soon as possible. So starting off with Lamai, a question from the 2011 A-level paper. So the question says, the following table shows the balance sheet of a commercial bank in a banking system. Now, usually, one tip I would give you is when you get a credit creation question, and if they give you, let's say, some information, some balance sheet, the first thing you have to figure out, Lamai, whether have they given you a single bank's balance sheet or have they given you the balance sheet of the entire banking system? Because based on that, how you approach the question can be a bit different. So based on this, can you all quickly tell me what have they given us, Lamai? The table below shows the balance sheet of a commercial bank in a banking system. So this balance sheet, is it of one single commercial bank or is it the balance sheet of a banking system? What do you all think? That's how you figure this out, Lama, is with reading, right? The more and more you do, you will be able to practice this out. So here's Lama, they're saying the following table shows the balance sheet of a commercial bank. And they're saying the balance sheet of a commercial bank in a banking system. So you'll have to be very careful with how you read. So it's the balance sheet of one commercial bank which is in a banking system. So this is not a banking system balance sheet, Lamai. This is the balance sheet of a commercial bank. So it's the balance sheet of a single bank. So if you all have watched that video that I would have told you, or even if you have been a part of my credit creation theory classes, Lamai, you all remember that table kind of thing. So here they have given you the data for one commercial bank. So then they are telling you there are deposits of 2,000. Those are liabilities. There are reserves and loans of 500 and 1,005. The question is saying, if the SRR is 50%, this commercial bank has excess reserves of. So you all know, my commercial banks, from the deposits that they get, they have to keep a certain part as required reserves. They can't give everything as loans. A part they have to keep as required reserves. Whatever they have in excess of that is what they can give out as loans. So if you take this bank, Lamai, can you all tell me how much of required reserves should this bank maintain? If they have deposits of 2,000, how much should their required reserves be, Lamai? SRR is a 15%. So from this 2,000, they have to keep lamai 15%. So 15% of 200 is, that is a 300. And that is what they have to keep as lamai required reserves. But how much do they have as actual reserves? That number will be there lamai in your balance sheet. So in the balance sheet, if you look at it, you can see there is a 500. So actual reserves lamai, they have a 500. So what does that mean, lamai? How much of reserves do they have as excess? If their required is only 300, but the balance sheet says they have 500, that means you have a excess reserve of lamai rupees 200 milli. Yeah. So that is how you figure that out. That's a very easy question to start off with. Now, what can you do with this excess 200? What can you do? What can you do with this excess 200? You can start giving new loans. So you can give, if they ask you, Lamai, what is the maximum new loan this bank could make? So the maximum new loan the bank could make is also equal to how much of excess reserves they have. So right now they have 200 million of excess reserve. So the maximum new loan they can make is also 200 million. The same question, Lamai, they can ask it to you in that format as well. Maybe now in an essay question, what they can do is they can ask you, Lamai, the two-step process of granting this loan. Now, if this excess reserve was given out as a loan, right, show how the balance sheet of the banking system will look like. If the customer withdraws the money, then how will the balance sheet look like? So, they can give you questions like that. There are essay questions, Lamai, we'll come to it at that point. Okay. So the answer for this question then, 31, will be answer number 1. And that is the amount of excess reserve they have. So always remember, if they ask you for excess reserves, what do? You compare the actual reserve versus the required reserve. How do you get the required reserve? From their total deposits, you look at the SRR and you see how much they should keep. So total deposits multiplied by your SRR. Okay. Then moving into the next one. 2011, another question. So, all of these questions might not be credit creation itself, but I have included some general commercial bank questions also so that we can finish off that entire past paper area. So, question number 32. Which of the following is a liability of a commercial bank? Which one do you all think, Lama? Is the liability of a commercial bank time and savings deposits, cash on hand, deposits on the central bank, commercial banks discounted, and then you have bank overdraft facilities. Now, usually, for a person like you or me, a loan is a liability. And if we have taken a loan, that's a liability. But for a commercial bank, is a loan a liability? For commercial bank, if a commercial bank has given a loan to maybe a customer, given a loan to, let's say, another customer or another bank, that's not a liability, no? So for commercial banks, remember, Lamai, for commercial banks, loans are assets. Now, that is why now, if you remember this balance sheet here, look at the balance sheet, Lamai. Under the assets section, Tamai Lamai, they have given loans. These are not the loans commercial banks have taken. These are loans commercial banks have given to maybe customers or to other banks. So then, if you take the cash on hand, now cash on hand, Lamai, is an asset for any business. If any business has cash on hand, that's an asset for them. Then if you take Lamai deposits on central bank, so commercial bank, they have their own money that they would have gone and deposited in the central bank. That is commercial bank's money. So that also could be an asset for them. Then you have the commercial bills discounted. So maybe Lamai, the commercial bank holds a few of commercial bills. So that's also an asset for them. Right? That's a financial asset. And then any bank overdraft. Remember, bank overdrafts are loans. These are bank overdrafts commercial bank has given to someone else. So then that also is an asset. Which one is the liability, Lamai? The liability there is number 1. Any deposit is a liability because those are not commercial bank's money. When, let's say, if I go and deposit, let's say 100,000 in a bank, that is, for me, it is an asset. But for the commercial bank, Lamai, that becomes a liability. So remember, any deposits are liabilities for commercial banks. So here the answer would be time and savings deposit. Demand deposits, any deposit will be a liability. So 31, 32, answer number 1. Moving to the next. So coming into 2012 now. 2012, now, interesting question. They're saying, Lamai, The reserve requirement is 20%. So that's saying SRR is 20%. Right now, there is an existence of 100 million worth of excess reserves in this banking system. So the banking system it's a collection of all the banks. Okay. So maybe this 100 million is with one bank, or maybe this 100 million is with little by little in multiple banks. That we don't know. They're saying the entire banking system has 100 million worth of excess reserve. Is it in one of the banks? Is it like 10 million into 10 banks? We don't know. Okay. And they're saying if they have this much of excess reserves, right, 100 million of excess reserves in the banking system can lead to a maximum expansion in money supply. So usually, when they talk about money supply, they refer to M1 money supply. That is currency held by public plus demand deposits. You have to be very careful because when a customer deposits or withdraws money, that currency held by public will also change. I'll show you some future questions. But here, how do you figure this out? Now, when there is an existence of 100 million, now this is a banking system, Lamai. So that means the deposit multiplier will now come into effect. The banking system has 100 million of excess reserves. If they give those as loans, Lamai, by how much do you think that will go from one person to another person to another person to another person? By how much do you think, Lamai, demand deposits in the banking system will increase by because of this 100? How 500? How are y'all telling me 500? How did we get that number? You had to calculate something. You had to calculate, Lamai, the deposit multiplier. How do you get the deposit multiplier? Your deposit multiplier is, Lamai, always remember when they talk about, Lamai, money supply, when they talk about the banking system, this deposit multiplier has to come into play. So then deposit multiplier is 1 divided by SRR. So in my example here, SRR is 20%. That doesn't mean, Lama, you divide 1 by 20. Yeah, it's not 1 divided by 20. It's 1 divided by 20%. So 20% can, Lama, 0.2. 20% can 20 over 100. So it's a 0.2. So 1 divided by 0.2, how much do you get? You get your deposit multiplier as 5 times. So that means if some sort of a deposit comes, Lamai, it will multiply 5 times in the entire banking system. So then if this 100 that is as excess reserves is given out as loans, comes as a deposit to another bank, that would have got multiplied 5 times. It'll go keep on going. No? Remember, if you all would have watched that video, if you all have learned credit creation. So then how many times will the banking system see an increase in deposits? They will see, Lamai, 100 into 5. The banking system will see an increase in deposits of 500 million. So then they are not asking you, Lamai, the question is not asking you by how much deposits increase by. They are asking you by how much can money supply increase by. So we'll put it to that money supply equation. So according to this, Lamai, demand deposits can increase by 500. The demand deposits can increase by 500. The 100 excess reserve will multiply by 5, can increase by 500. Is the currency held by public changing? Usually currency held by public will change, Lamai, if a customer deposits money. If he deposits money, then currency held by public will come down. If a customer withdraws and takes money, then the amount he has goes up, then currency held by public goes up. Is anything like that happening in this question? Is a customer depositing money or is a customer withdrawing money? Anything like that happen? Nothing like that. No, it's just that there is an excess reserve in the banking system. They are not talking about any deposit or withdrawal. So therefore, my currency held by public will not be changed. So then as a result, you can say, Anna, money supply will also increase by a 500 because CC does not change. Because most of you all miss that currency held by public part. So then which one is your answer? Your answer could be number. Answer could be number 5. If 600 is the answer, if the question asks total deposit also mentioning 100 is an increase. Yeah, no, it's like this. So no, it will not be 600 then. Now, if they, for example, said now the same question, right? I'll give you a difference. Now, instead of saying, Lamai, there is a 100 million existing excess reserve. What if they told you there is 100 million of new deposit. Let's say they told you like that. They told you there is 100 million new deposit by a customer. The same question, I'm making a small change. Our existing question says there is 100 million of existing reserves in the banking system. But instead of saying there is 100 million existing reserves, right, excess reserves, which can be given out as loans, what if they say a customer now comes and newly deposits 100 million? Then will your answer change, Lamai? What do you all think? If they say a customer comes and deposits 100, the answer will change. Let me show you. So if a customer comes and deposits 100 million, Lamai, your deposit multiplier is 5 times. No? So then this thing will work as it is. This 100 would have got multiplied by 5, and demand deposits in the banking system in total would have increased by 500. So that 500 will include that initial 100 as well. So demand deposits will increase by 500, but a customer is depositing 100, Lamai. That means what will happen to currency held by public? CC. Customer is depositing kya lamai. Currency held by public will fall by 100. So then money supply won't increase by 500. Then lamai, money supply will increase only by 400. So be very careful with that. If there is an existing excess reserve lamai, that currency held by public doesn't change. No, customer is not depositing or withdraw. But if they specifically say a customer has deposited that as a new one, then Anna, you need to remember currency held by public will also change. I think there are questions in the future. We'll look into things like that. So for this question, you don't have to do all of that. For this question, you can do. Total deposit will be 500. So the total deposit 100 that comes will get multiplied by 5. Total deposits in the banking system would be a 500. In both the cases, it would be a 500. That won't change. Can we same answer by thinking that when there's excess reserve, loans can be given, will increase, and thereby money supply will increase? Yeah, you can think of it that way, Lamai. You can think of it that way, but I'm showing you this overall equation because this you can apply this to other questions as well. Right? So on the whole thing, right? Money supply will increase. I totally agree. Right? You can apply the equation later on. I'll show you. Isn't 500 change in DD? No, it's not the change in DD, Lamai. It's the increase. So because of this 100 deposits, it will go through. When we go through a bigger question, I'll go through. So because of now, right now, where is this 100? Now, if you all remember my whole, this one. So for example, do you remember that table I would have explained? So let's say Lamai, there is 100 million that has come to bank X as a deposit. They have kept some amount of reserve, some amount, given some amount as loans, but somehow Lamai, this banking system has, right, maybe a couple of banks, they have 100 of excess reserve. That's what they're saying. The banking system, maybe bank X, Y, Z, all put together, they have 100 million of existing reserves, excess. So that excess, if they start giving out as loans, what happens, Lamai? It will start moving. So then because of that, that will go into one place to another place to another place to another place. Demand deposits will increase by a 500. So right now that 100 is not a demand deposit. Right now it's in as an excess reserve. So if it's the moment it's given as a loan, Tamai, that initial first deposit comes. The moment that excess is given as a loan, think of it as a new deposit coming into one of the banks. So if you give it as a loan to one person, that person will spend it somehow and it will come as a new deposit to another bank. And then your credit creation process starts. And then the banking system will have a total 500. Okay. Right. Then I will leave it there. Moving into the next. 2012, question 28. If the public's desire to hold money as currency increases, so public's desire to hold money as currency has gone up, what will be the impact on the banking system? Time and savings deposits will also increase now, not just demand deposit. Usually in your question, they give you demand deposits, but others will also increase. Okay. What happens, Lavai? What if the people desire to hold currency? So they desire to hold currency kiyane lamai. Do they like to put money in the bank? What do you all think? They're saying people's desire to hold money as currency has increased. So everyone likes to keep the money in their almara hari, purse hari. That is what has happened. So then lamai the money deposited in banks will go down, right? So people are not now depositing money in banks. Instead, they're keeping that in the form of currency. And that is what they're saying, lamai. They're saying if the public's desire to hold money as currency increases, so now people like to keep money as currency. They like to keep it in their safe, sorry, in their purse, sorry, they like to keep it. They don't like to put it in the bank. So then what would happen? That's what they're asking. So if that happens, Lamai, banks would be able to increase their liquid assets. Can banks increase their liquid assets? Can Lamai, banks reserves and all? If people are not putting money into the banks, can banks increase their reserves, their liquid assets, their money in their safe and all? They can't, Nilamai, because money is not with the bank, money is with the people. Banks would be able to increase their earning assets. Earning assets can be loans. Do you think banks can increase their loans? Can give more and more loans if people are not coming and depositing money? Again, no. If people are not depositing money, Lamai, that means banks don't have the ability to increase their earning assets. All they can't give out loans. No, banks don't have money. Then banks would be less able to reduce interest rate. Interest rate and that lamai will not have a direct connection. Then we can leave that out. And then banks would be more able to expand credit. Banks would be less able to expand credit. What do you all think? If people are not depositing money, what can you tell about the amount of loans the banks can give? Can they give more and more credit? Or the ability to give credit, will it decrease? It will decrease, no? Practically, if no one is depositing money, where do the banks have money to give out as loans? If everyone is preferring to keep money in the form of cash, currency, in their safe or in their purse, then how do you give out loans? You can't give out as loans. There's nothing that you can give. So then this one becomes your answer, 28, number 5. Then going into the next one, 2013. Now, this was a bit of an interesting question, Lamai. It's like a one-off type of a thing. 2013 was usually considered a very difficult A-level paper. And that's why after 13, the people who set the paper also changed. And 14 was a very easy paper. So I will not recommend to spend a lot of time on 14 because 13 was tough. They made 14 very, very easy because there was so much of criticisms that happened for the 2013 A-level paper. So this is also one of the questions like that level. So the question says, a closed economy has a banking system. So there is a banking system. Now, banking system can have a collection of banks consisting of a single bank. So the entire banking system has only one bank. So this is what you call a monopoly bank. So the entire banking system has only one bank out there. There are no multiple banks. Okay. So then Lamai, when you get a question, if you get a question like this, there is a banking system kiyanne collection of all the banks. But even though there's a banking system, that banking system has only one bank. So maybe think of a very small country, right? One bank is there. So that bank, that is the only bank. That bank is the banking system as well. So then they're asking you, the bank operates with a SRR of 10%. A customer deposits 10,000 in cash, assuming no subsequent change in notes and coins. What is the maximum number of loans that the bank can grant? Now, do you do this question based on a single bank approach, or do you do this question based on a banking system approach? Now, they are saying there is a banking system, but they are also saying the banking system has only one bank also. So then how do you approach the question? Now, if it's a banking system approach that you take, deposit multiplier, all of it comes. If it's a single bank that you take, then there is no deposit multiplier at all. So remember, if they give you something like this, a monopoly bank situation, you approach the question, Lamai, as a banking system question. Just make a note and keep. By any chance in your paper, if they give you a question about an entire monopoly bank, you approach this as a banking system question. So then, Lamai, if a customer has deposited 10,000 in this bank, okay, They are asking you how much is the maximum loans the bank can grant, but banking system. So then, can you first tell me, Lamai, because of this 10,000 deposit, okay, now we think of this as a banking system, forget about a single bank story. How much will the total deposits in the banking system increase by? If your SRR is 10%, how much is your deposit multiplier? Deposit multiplier is 1 over SRR, so 1 over 0.1, that is 10 times. So your deposit multiplier is 10 times. Okay. So that means, Lamai, this 10,000 would have got multiplied by how many times? Would have got multiplied by 10 times, and that would have cost how much? That would have cost total deposits of 100,000, right? Total deposits of 100. Now, why do you consider this as a banking system, Lamai? Because if one bank is the only bank that is there, it can still be able to create some amount of credit. It should be able to, right? You can give out as loans. That loans will somehow end up coming as deposits again to another, some way it will again come back to that bank itself. You can do that. It's not impossible to do. Okay. So then this is the total deposits in the banking system. They're not asking you for that. They're asking you, Lamai, for the total loans in the banking system. So how much of loans do you think will be there? If deposits were 100,000, how much would have the reserves been, Lamai, in the banking system? The reserves in the banking system, from that 100,000, you have to keep a 10%. So then that would be 10,000. Then, Lamai, how much of loans would be there in the entire banking system? In the entire banking system, there would have then been a 90,000 worth of loans. And that is your answer there. Remember that it's a bit of a tricky question. So the learning point for you all is, if the question says there is a single bank, there is a banking system, but the banking system has only one bank, that means that's a monopoly bank line. Monopolies we learn, there is only one person. That's a monopoly bank. So if you get a question of a monopoly bank, remember, you have to approach that question not as a single bank, as a banking system question, like a normal banking system question approach. That means the deposit multiplier and all of it applies. So then what are they asking you in this question? They're asking you, because of this customer deposit, what is the maximum amount of loans that the bank can grant? So then you think of the banking system. So maximum loans the bank can grant is this. How did I get to this 90,000? First, I took the initial deposit 10,000 and then I calculated my deposit multiplier. I figured out my deposit multiplier is 10 times. That means there would have been, Lamai, 100,000 that is created. Total deposits of 100,000. So there are total deposits of 100,000. They have to keep 10% as reserves. That is a 10,000. And the balance, 90,000, they could have given out as loans. So that is your answer there. Difference between a single bank and a monopoly bank, Lamai. Now, when you say single bank, now usually, Lamai, it's like this, right? So usually, now when you say single bank, that is one of the banks in the entire banking system. So there could be, let's say, 100 banks. You're one bank. You're a single bank. But let's say if that single bank is the only bank in the banking system, then it becomes a single bank along with the monopoly bank. So a monopoly bank is also a single bank. I will agree. But if you talk about if that single bank is the only bank in the banking system, then remember, you approach it as a banking system question. Just have that in mind. So answer then number 4, it will be a 90,000. How many of you got this correct? Done it earlier, figured this out, no? 2013, question 27. Okay, so just make a note and keep. Even if you got it wrong, that's okay. Make a note and keep. If they say single bank banking system, that is how you do it. Okay. Now we'll go to the next one. 2015 A levels, question number 35. They're saying, suppose that in a commercial banking system, all banks maintain a 20% of deposits as cash reserves. That is their SRR. Okay, banking system, SRR is 20%. One bank receives a new cash deposit of 200 million. If there are no subsequent changes in currency in circulation, what will be the maximum amount of loans that the banking system can grant as a result of this new deposit? Same question as before, Lavai. Same question as before. They are saying there is a new deposit of 200 million that is coming. Okay. Right. There is a new deposit coming into, let's say, Bank X. They are not asking you how much of loans Bank X can give. Now we'll just see how much of loans can Bank X give, Lamai? From this 200, how much will Bank X keep as reserves? Let's say it came to Bank X, the first bank. If SRR is 20% from the 200, they would have kept a 40 as reserves. And how much would have Bank X given out as loans? Bank X would have then given 160 million as loans. Okay. But is that what they're asking you? Are they asking you how much of maximum loans Bank X can give? Or this single bank can give? That is not what they're asking. They're asking you, Lamai, what is the maximum amount of loans the banking system can grant? So then banking system can, Lamai, may all the banks put together. So first, can you tell me this is the figure that you have to find out. But before we get to that, Lamai, first can you tell me how much of deposits will get created in the entire banking system because of this 200? If my SRR is 20%, you all know SRR is 20% lang, multiplier is, that by heart you all should know by now. Once you do 2-3 questions, SRR 20% kiyanne multiplier is 5 times. So we have done one before also, no? That you can't be in your A-level paper lama eka equation dada calculate karanne epa. Okay. So then this 200 will get multiplied by 5, and that means in the entire banking system, there would be deposits of 1,000 million. So if entire banking system has deposits of 1,000, how much of reserve should the entire banking system have? SRR is 20%. So the 1,000 willing 20% you have to keep. But remember, that is also equal to your initial deposit. They'll have to keep a 200. That means, Lama, how much of loans do you think the entire banking system would have given? The entire banking system would have given 800 million of loan. See, the approach for this question and the approach for this question was the same, Lama. It's just that here they talked about a monopoly bank and all of it. We got a new deposit, we multiplied and got the total deposits, we figured out the loans. So here also same. We got a new deposit of 200. It's just that the SRR and all are different. So multipliers put that different. You have 1,000. Therefore, you get total loans there of 800. That's your answer. So answer number 3 then. Right, in your paper, 2015, 35 is number 3. Okay. Then we'll go to the next one. 2016. Okay. Commercial banks can create money. How can they create money, Lavan? How can they engage in this credit creation? When a customer comes and deposits money, what should they do, Lama, if they want to create credit? The customer comes and deposits money. They have to keep a part as required. And whatever they have as excess, Lama, they have to keep on giving loans, right? Then only that will go from one place to another place to another place to another place. It will keep on going. So then which one talks about an answer like that? Commercial banks can create money by converting reserves into securities? No. By buying treasury bills? No. By sending cash to the central bank? No. By maintaining 100% reserve requirement? No. By lending excess reserves to customers? Yes. That's how you create money, no? So when one customer comes and deposits, you keep a certain amount as required reserve, and the balance as excess reserve you give out as loans. So then that goes on and on and on and on and on and on. The whole credit creation process happens. So then that's your answer there. 2016, 29 is number 5. Then we go to the next one. 2016, question number 30. The question is saying, suppose an individual withdraws 10,000 from his deposit account in a commercial bank. If all else is constant, the bank has a SRR of 20%. This transaction will directly reduce money supply and bank deposits. Interesting question, Lava. Okay. So listen. All right. Now, when you get a question like this, what is happening? There is a customer, he is not depositing. But what is he doing? A customer is lamai withdrawing 10,000. Now, if it makes it easy for you, you think of it lamai as a deposit of 10,000. And then we'll work on the opposite first, right? So first we'll forget about the withdrawal. We'll think of the opposite that we know no deposit. So let's say lamai instead of withdrawing, let's say a customer deposits 10,000. So if he deposits 10,000, can you all tell me, Lamai, how will the money supply change by? That is currency held by public and demand deposits. If he deposits 10,000, if SRR is 20%, Lamai, how much is my deposit multiplier? My deposit multiplier is quick. Deposit multiplier is 5 times. Okay. So then, Lamai, this 10,000 would have got multiplied by how many times? And as a result, in the banking system, there would have been total deposits. So this 10,000 that comes would have gone. At the end, in the banking system, how much you would have had? You would have had a 50,000 worth of demand deposits. Okay. And also, Lamai, a customer is with depositing money. He's depositing money. Lamai, what do you think will happen to currency held by public? Customer had some money. Bank. He deposits that money. So now the amount that the customer has in his hand is less. No, it will reduce. So currency held by public will come down by 10,000. So if the customer deposits that 10,000 lamai, then how much will be the change in money supply? The change in money supply would be a 40,000. Right. And that would have been your answer. Now this same thing, now this is if the customer deposits. Now the question is not saying customer is depositing. Question is saying my customer is withdrawing. So that means you have to do the opposite now. So this is what you call multiple deposit contraction. Right? So they're saying, because it's one bank only, but since all the answers talk about money supply and the total bank deposits, therefore you'll have to look at a banking system kind of a thing. It is one bank. The customer is depositing or withdrawing from one bank, but they're asking you as a result of this deposit or withdrawal to one of these banks, what happens in the banking system? What happens to the total deposits? What happens to the money supply? So if this is what the customer deposits, Lamai, okay, by giving them as a loan, won't it add to so when they give it out as a loan, that money again comes back as a demand deposit to another bank. So it doesn't get added to CC, banking system. So one bank gets 10,000, they keep, let's say, 2,000 as reserves, they give 8,000 as loans. Yes, initially that 8,000 will come to currency held by public. I agree. But then that 8,000 also again goes to another bank. So again, it goes as a deposit to another bank. So at the end of the day, all of it is in the demand deposit part. It's not in currency held by public. Okay. So then we'll think of the opposite of this now. So if a customer he doesn't deposit, he withdraws 10,000. So if he withdraws 10,000 lavai, now there would be a multiple deposit contraction. Just remember that. Now, like you had a multiple deposit expansion here, that 10,000 cost to 50,000. Now, if there is a withdrawal, lamai, just make a note and keep, there is a what? Multiple deposit contraction. So then, lamai, if your SRR is a 5 times, because of this 10,000 withdrawal, in your entire banking system, lamai, demand deposits should have changed by how much? If this is the opposite of it. Demand deposits should have changed by? Demand deposits should have changed by, lamai, of 50,000. That's what you call a multiple deposit contraction, lamai. It's the exact opposite of a customer depositing money. If a customer deposits that 10,000, it's got a multiple expansion now. If the customer withdraws the money, it has to be the other way around. So then in the entire banking system, there will be a 50,000 worth of a contraction. And as a result, now customer is withdrawing money. What do you think happens to currency held by public? Currency held by public. Currency held by public will increase by a 10,000. Now he's withdrawing that 10,000. So it increases by 10,000. So overall, what happens to money supply? Demand deposits will fall by a 50. Currency held by public will increase by a 10. Money supply will fall by a 40,000. So it's a negative 40,000. So then, with that in mind, try to find the answer. So your answer should either say demand deposits fall by 50,000. All the answers are talking about demand, bank deposits and money supply. So either an answer that says bank deposits fall by 50 or an answer that says money supply falls by 40. That is also correct. Or even if, because they are saying this will reduce, no? So it will either reduce demand deposits by 50 or it will either reduce money supply by 40. One of the two, if it is there, those two are correct answers. So we'll go one by one. Money supply will reduce money supply by 10. No, it will reduce money supply by 40. Directly reduce bank deposits by 10? No. So here when they say bank deposits, they're talking about the entire banking system's bank deposits. Huh? The money supply by 50? No, money supply will go by 40. The bank deposits by 50? Could be your answer. Has a reserve condition, this will translate. Sorry, they are asking for direct reduce also. Give me a second. Okay, what did you all go as an answer? You'll go with 4. I missed the word directly here. So help me make a small correction. I missed the word directly there. So when they say directly, they're referring to the existing one bank itself. So when a customer comes and withdraws Lamai, what do you think? What will this directly reduce? What is the direct impact of it? Direct is the very first impact of it. What's the very first thing? Now, what I explained is Lamai, the total impact. At the end of the day, what happens? That's a multiple deposit contraction. Initially, if a customer comes and withdraws, what's the direct impact? Same thing, think of the opposite as a deposit. So initially, if a customer comes and deposits 10,000, what's the direct impact? Forget about all the credit creation happening. The direct impact is your demand deposits of a bank goes up by 10,000. That is what happens now. If a customer deposits 10,000, your direct impact is under demand deposits go up by 10,000. Then after that, once credit creation and all starts, then this whole thing that I explained comes into play, right? Where demand deposits will start multiplying, all of that. Then same story, if a customer withdraws money, if he withdraws a 10,000, then what is the direct impact that we have? Direct impact. What will happen to what is the direct, very first thing that will happen? The demand deposits of a bank will reduce by how much? How much will it reduce by? Quickly, give me an answer. Demand deposits of the bank will reduce by others. Product, do the question and come up. Otherwise, the product, you also become lost. You also don't know what to do. 10,000. I have some personal answers on the chat box saying different numbers. I have around 30 answers, 5 on the main chat. As much as possible, I'm trying to train on the main chat because personal one by one, I'm trying to open. Give me a second. But try to send it on the main chat, it becomes more easy. What do you all think? Is it a direct? Is it a 10,000 or should we multiply it and get a bigger answer? 10,000 or a bigger one? You can have the direct impact element because they are asking you for direct impact. Now, what if they ask you not the direct impact, the overall impact? Anna, then my answer, what I explained before is correct. Demand deposits fall by 50, money supply falls by 40. Anna, that would have been correct. But here, we missed the word direct. So it will directly reduce my demand deposits by a 10,000. So when you talk about the direct impact, we don't talk about money supply because money supply can't change. Customer has withdrawn money. That means currency held by public increased by 10,000, demand deposits fell by 10,000. So then money supply would have been unchanged. That's the direct impact. But if credit creation starts happening, there could be a bigger impact there. So then we'll go back to the answers one by one. Money supply will reduce by 10,000. No, money supply will actually stay constant because the direct impact is customer deposits withdraws 10,000 now, currency held by public increases by 10,000, demand deposits fall by 10,000. So money supply can't change. So then not one. Bank deposits, reduce bank deposits by 10,000, and that could be your answer. Money supply by 50, no. Bank deposits by 50, that would have been the overall final impact of this. They are not asking you for the final impact, they're asking you for the direct impact. And then not this. Bank deposits by 8,000, no. So that's answer number 2 then in this question. Is that okay? I hope I did not confuse you. Just make a note there and keep if they ask for direct impact, they're referring to the immediate impact. If they ask you for the overall impact, then you can go and explain it this way. You can explain it based on this story. That is the overall impact, what I'm shading in yellow. But direct impact, you don't think of credit creation and all of it, just the direct immediate one that you look at. Okay. So 30 is number 2 then. Then we go into the next one. 2016, question number 31. They're saying Sri Lankan commercial banks maintain their SRR in the form of what? What have I told you all about? Where do commercial banks keep their SRR most? Cash in hand and deposits at the central bank, cash in hand and treasury bills, gold and foreign currency in the bank vaults, deposits at other commercial banks that are immediately accessible, deposits and foreign currency at the central bank. Where do they keep this SRR level? Most of it they have to deposit with the central bank, but some of it they might have in their safe as well. So which one is that answer? Answer number 1 then, no? Cash in hand and deposits at the central bank. Most of it would have been deposited, but immediately when a customer comes and deposits money, you can't, every time a transaction happens, you can't go and run to the central bank. So some of it, immediate ones will be there in the bank safe at the end of the day, and that also physically cash won't move. It's an accounting transaction that actually happens. Done. Then the next one, 2016, there's a lot of questions, no? 2016, question number 32. They're saying, if commercial bank purchases treasury bills from central bank, purchases treasury bills from commercial banks, what will happen to bank reserves and the money supply? Bank reserves, think of this as the money banks have in their safe. Right? Money the bank has in its safe. So with that money, you can give loans and all of that. Okay. So think of it. If a central bank, this is connecting to monetary policy. If a central bank purchases treasury bills from a commercial bank, that means, tell me, are commercial banks getting money or should commercial banks pay money? Central bank is coming and purchasing the treasury bill that commercial banks have. That means central bank will give them money and purchase the treasury bill. So central bank will give them money and purchase treasury bill. Commercial banks are getting money. So if commercial banks are getting money, what do you think will happen to the amount of money commercial banks have in their safe? Will it increase or decrease? It will start increasing. Now they have a lot of money in their safe. Their bank reserves will start to increase. If their bank reserves increase, what do you think they will do with that money? Safe then you can't earn anything. What do you start doing with that? Loans. So once you start giving that as loans, what happens? Credit creation starts. Then as a result, what do you think will happen to money supply then? You give that as loans and the money supply will start increasing. And that is your story. So which one is your answer then? Bank reserves and what happens to money supply? Bank reserves also increase. Money supply also increases. Right. 32, number 2. Now always, when you're doing these questions, think of the opposite as well. Now, what if they say if the central bank sells treasury bills? So if they sell treasury bills, that means commercial banks with the money that they have to buy. Then they have to pay. So say if we get money around, they will pay. So then the money goes down. Then you can't give much loans. Your money supply can start going down. So think of the opposite as well always when doing questions. So when you're doing think, okay, what if the number was different? Now, what if, they give me something like this? So that is what I want you all to do, Lamai. Again, I tell you, not just for econ, for other subjects as well. Always you have an open mind. It's not about just memorizing a tute and memorizing a past paper. Never. Very unlikely that this exact question as it is will come in your paper. But this knowledge, they will twist it around and they will ask. So that is why when you're doing questions, past papers, any questions, Lamai, always think. So always, as a rule, Lamai, when you all are doing questions, now even in our mock exam series, fast track, we do papers. No? So just doing the paper and getting it marked is not enough, Lamai. After the paper is done, correcting that and seeing where you went right or wrong. Right? Learning that paper is also important. So it's not about Lamai doing thousands and thousands of questions. It's about learning those questions. So Kerala just don't mark and say, out of 50, I got 40 MCQs correct. It's not it. It can't stop there. Right? Then you study that paper. Study that paper again, not memorize the paper. Okay, why did I go wrong? What if this comes like this? What if they twist it around? So that is how Lama you score marks. That's how you get to that good island rank levels rather than just staying at a 75. Okay, moving into 2017. 2017, they're saying, suppose you deposit 10,000 in your deposit account in a commercial bank. If the bank wishes to hold 20% of all deposits as reserves, how much new deposits can it create as a direct result of your deposit? See, Lamai, direct result of your deposit. Then when they say direct result, are they talking about the entire banking system overall impact? Yes or no? That learning should have come from the previous question. When they say direct result immediately. Immediate, what can you do? So we'll see. So there is a one bank. There is bank X. To bank X lamai, there is a 10,000 of a deposit that is coming. SRR is 20% nanglamai. How much do you think they will keep as reserves? This bank? They would keep a 2,000 as reserves. 20% is 2,000. Then lamai, how much would they give out as loans? 2,000 reserves lamai, balance 8,000 nega denawa loans. Now this 8,000 is the one that directly goes as a deposit to another bank, no? Anna, that is what they are asking you. Because of this deposit, how much of new deposits can it create as a direct result of your deposit? As a direct result of your deposit of 10,000, they kept 2,000, gave the balance 8,000. That 8,000 went as another deposit for this. So how much of new deposits as a direct result? That would be that 8,000 there. If they ask you how much is the total deposits that could be created, then you use the deposit multiplier and you calculate your total deposit. So here, your answer would be number 1. How many of you got that correct? 2017, 32. So have that as a learning point, Lamai. When they say direct result, they're always referring to the immediate impact, not the final impact when they say this. Okay, good. Learning point for us. Then we go to the next one. 2018. Which of the following is a liability of the commercial bank balance sheet? This was there before also. Which one is a liability? I told you. Whenever a customer comes and deposits money, could be demand deposits, could be this, could be that, whatever happens, Lamai, this is a liability. So demand deposit, saving deposit. How do you find with a single bank or a banking system, Lamai? There you have to read the question. So it depends on how the question is given. So the more and more you read, you will be able to figure out. Right? So if they talk about the overall thing, if they talk about, let's say, how does money supply change by, then that's a banking system. But if they talk about one deposit come into one bank and all, usually it's a single bank. But because of one deposit come into one bank, there could be a question based on the banking system as well. So for that, I think You can watch that video that I would have sent, Lamai, especially that table kind of approach I take to explain makes it very easy for Duck to figure it out. Okay. Then, so 2018 is also done. Answer number 2. We'll go to the next. 2019. 19 is saying, suppose that all banks keep only the minimum reserve required by law and there are no currency drains. The legal reserve requirement is 10. If a customer deposits 1,000 in a current account, what is the maximum amount of increase in total money supply? See, when I told you money supply, Lamai, what is money supply? Currency held by public plus demand deposit. You all miss a point here. So when this 1,000 Lamai comes into the banking system as a deposit, how much of new deposits will that create in the entire banking system? 1,000 came to one bank, but it will go, Nilama, it will go from one bank to another bank to another bank to another bank. How much is that? SRR is 10% kiyanne. Your deposit multiplier is then 10 times. So then this 1,000 would have created, Lamai, total deposits of 10,000. Now, is that your answer? Is that your answer? Now, that is where you all go wrong, Lamai. They're not asking you by how much will total deposits increase. Total deposits, I totally agree with you. It will increase us by 10,000. Right. But they're asking you how much does money supply change by. Remember in a previous question I told you where they had that exist reserve kata. So now, Lamai, a customer is depositing money. So if a customer deposits 1,000, Lamai, what happens to currency held by public? Currency held by public should fall by that 1,000, no? So it has to fall by 1,000. Then my money supply increases by how much? Money supply doesn't increase by 10,000. Money supply increases only by 9,000. So be very careful when you do that. So if they asked you how much does total deposits change by, I agree answer is number 4, 10,000. They're not asking you for that. They're asking you for how much does money supply increase by. So remember, money supply is always currency held by public and demand deposits. So look at the impact for both. In my excess reserve story, my currency held by public didn't change. They never deposited or withdrawn. Only the demand deposits. Therefore, in that excess reserve previous MCQ, I can't remember the question number exactly. If I want to show you. Which one was that? Anyone remembers that MCQ number? Can't figure out. 2012. Okay, so 2012. This one, right? So here, there was an existing excess reserve. So there, my currency held by public, I never changed because customer never deposited or withdraw. So therefore, money supply change and the demand deposit change was the same. But here, in the question that we just did, it's not the same. Customer is depositing money. So currency held by public comes down. So be careful there. So then answer is number 3, 9,000. Then I go to the next one. 2019, there's another one. They're saying, forget about the O. If a 300 million deposit in a commercial bank leads to a 3,000 million increase in money supply, the SRR would have been. What do you think? A 300 million deposit leads to a 3,000 million increase in money supply. Now this, Lamai, I feel the answer could have got a little better, right? But here, because they are not saying, now if they say, ideal, Lamai, money supply is currency held by public and demand deposits. So if you apply my same logic as before, a 300 million deposit can, Lamai, currency held by public should have fallen by 300. And then money supply has increased by 3,000 kiyanne, your demand deposit should have increased by actually 3,300. So then a 300 million deposit has cost a 3,300 increase in deposits. So then your multiplier is not 10, it's a little bit more than 10. But in this question, we will not use that approach, Lamai. 1, because there is no direct answer there. 2, they are saying, Lamai, a 300 million deposit, whether this deposit is coming from the customers, we don't know. What if it's another bank that is coming and putting? What if it's lamai central bank coming and putting? Right? So we don't know that, right? What if the deposit is coming from a commercial bank had given some money central bank? Now central bank is coming and depositing it back. So there is that uncertainty there, right? So for that, you cannot use this. So a 300 million increase is 300 million of a deposit is causing a 3,000 million increase in money supply here. It has got multiplied by a 10. Right? So we will not go into very detail into that CCDD part there because it's not sure who deposited that money. So then Lamai, how much is your multiplier? Multiplier is 10. If your multiplier is 10, Lamai, how much is your SRR? How much is the value that you get as SRR? Quickly give me an answer, Lamai. You're disappointed. Multiplier is 10, now SRR is also 10. 1 divided by SRR is only your multiplier. So if your multiplier is 10, you get SRR as 0.1. 0.1 kiyanne, not 0.1%. Either you have to say 0.1 or you have to say 10%. One of the two. So you can't go with answer number 1. Na? If answer number 1 doesn't have the percentage sign, then it's okay. Yes, that's that answer there. Okay. Then going to 2020. 2020 question number 27. They're saying, assume that, I guess, I think this question has been typed a little wrong, but you can refer to the original paper that you have. I'll add the thing that I have not typed. Assume that one of the commercial banks in the banking system has excess reserves of 400 million. Okay. So there is one bank that has excess reserves of 400 million. What can they do with that? They can give those as loans. And the SRR is 20%. Okay, so somewhere down the line, they have told you SRR is also 20%. Meanwhile, a customer of this bank deposits a 25 million in his current account. So there is a customer who deposits another 25. Okay. Can you all tell me now, can you all complete this question to me? Look at your past paper book and tell me in this current account, and the bank lends how much? Bank lends rupees. This question is put incomplete, 120. So bank lends 120 million. They'll ask you what is the additional lending, no? Additional lending. Those words are missing in the question. What is the additional lending that can be granted by this bank now? So can you just write down between that rupees and that lending, there is some words missing. So the bank is lending 120 million. What is the additional lending that they can give? Okay. Sorry, 120 million to another customer. What is the additional lending that they can give? Right. So now we'll come up with the story. We did a very similar question, Lama, in our fast track paper as well, but I changed the numbers. So I also took it from this one and changed the numbers. So look at this. Customer, there is 400 million of excess reserves. They're asking you what is the additional lending that can be granted. So the new amount of loans. So the new amount of loans is Lama, how much of excess reserves they have. That is what you can give out as loans. So they had Lama, initially they had 400 million of excess reserve. That means that entire 400 they should have given in what? Yeah, that part is Lama. Yeah, that's what I said. That part is not printed as I told you at that part, Lama. So it says current account, lent 120 million. What is the additional amount of lending? So just refer to the 2020 paper. I've just gave the information. I've typed it a little bit wrong there. Okay. Okay. So back to my thing. Give me a second to have some water. Okay. So there is Lama a 400 million of excess reserve, which they could have given out as lending. But after that, Lama, a customer came and put another 25. So if a customer came and put a 25, if SRR is 20% Lamai, from this 25, how much should they have kept as required reserve? From this 25, they should have kept 5 million. That means Lamai, balance 20 million goes to where? Balance 20 million goes to excess. That is what you can give out as loans, no? So balance 20 million is now here. So now, how much of excess reserve does the bank have? At the very beginning, they had 400. Now, because this customer came and put a 25, taking 20 and excess worth. Now they have 420 million of excess reserve. Okay. Then also the bank has given 120 million of a loan. That's what I have not typed. Let me put that make a note there. So then you can give your loans with excess reserves. So then from this 420 and 120, they have given it to someone they have given. The question is asking, how much of additional lending can the bank give now? How much can they give now? They had 400, 20 got added, taking 120 they gave. Now how much can they give? How much they can give is how much of excess reserves do they have now? That's what they're asking. So how much do they have now? They have a 300 million of excess. So answer is number 5. That's, I think, a good question to work around to get something. So Product, please correct that question. If you all have the tute printed on your end, refer to the past paper book. There is some words missing, especially that 120 million word is missing. Just type that. Sorry about that. Then going to the next, 2021. 21, question number 29. They're saying, suppose a customer makes a deposit of 400 million with a commercial bank, which keeps 80 million as SRR. All else constant, how much the bank have in excess reserves? And what is the size of the deposit multiplier? Easy in lemon. So if a customer deposited 400, follow the same approach as the last question. From this, if they kept required reserves, they kept as 80. That means how much is the balance that goes to excess reserve? From the 400, they kept 80 as required now. The balance 320 is what goes to excess. That excess is what you can give out as loans. So excess reserves is a 320. Okay. And then they're asking you, what is the deposit multiplier? So how much is your SRR? From 400, they kept 80. What percentage did they keep? 80 over 400 into 100 if you want a formal equation. How much did they keep? They kept, practically you should be able to figure this out. They have kept a 20%, no? 400, 20% is 80. So if your SRR is 20%, then how much is your deposit multiplier? Now with memory, you all should know this. SRR 20% and deposit multiplier is 5 times. So 320 and then 5. So then answer would be number 4. Questions are easy, not that hard. Manageable. Then go into the next one. 2022. Okay. Given a SRR of 10% in an economy with fractional reserve banking system, what is the total amount of deposits resulting from a new deposit according to the deposit multiplier? Now here, are they asking for the change in money supply and all? No, they haven't made it that complex. They are saying a new deposit of 50 million is coming. Let's say it's coming to bank X. Because of this, right? What is the total deposits in the banking system? So how much of total deposits will be there in the banking system? If your SRR is a 10%, how much is your deposit multiplier? 1 over 0.1 is 10. So then this 50 would have multiplied by 10, Lamai. How much of total deposits would be there in the banking system? Total deposits in the banking system would be a 500. So simple as. So then answer number. What is the total amount of deposits resulting from a new deposit of this 500? Done. Then the next one, 2023, question 29. They say, if a person deposits 5,000 in a current account at the commercial bank, which maintains the required reserve ratio, what is the immediate effect? Immediate effect can be the direct impact. What's the direct impact? A decrease in money supply. Will there be a decrease in money supply? Immediate effect. If the customer deposits, currency held by public will fall by 10,000. Demand deposits of the bank will increase by 5,000. Demand will increase by 5,000. So immediate impact is money supply does not change. That's the immediate impact. Yes, CC falls, DD increases. Same amount, money supply is constant. So immediate effect, decrease in money supply, wrong. Increase in money supply, wrong. Money supply does not change. No change in money supply looks correct. No change in money supply. But in the future, money supply may expand because the bank now has excess reserve. Do you think? Immediately no change. But now because of this deposit of 5,000 came, now there could be some credit creation. Banks will keep some amount as required and they will give those out as loans. And there could be credit creation. So in the future, your money supply can actually go up. So then looks like our answer. It looks correct. Then we look at the others also. Fourth one says increase in money supply of 5,000. No. Immediate you won't have an increase. No. A reduction in the excess reserves. They won't have a reduction. If a customer comes and deposits money, the excess reserve very well. It goes up. So not 5. Then it's answer number. See, the immediate impact and the future overall impact that is there. It's the same thing that we have been learning. They have been testing that in calculations. Now they have put that testing it in a theory kind of a format. Okay, that's 2023, question 29. Then we have the last MCQ. After that, we can move to the essay questions. So 2024, the latest paper. So now we'll see, Lama, if y'all can get this right. Suppose a businessman withdraws 50,000 from his safe and deposits that money in a commercial bank. So a businessman is withdrawn from his safe and put it in a commercial bank. Okay. If the bank holds no excess reserves and the SRR is 10%, how much will this deposit increase the bank's required reserves and the bank's lending ability? Very easy. So a person has taken money from his safe and come and put 50,000. So if the SRR is a 10% lamai, how much will the bank have to keep as required reserve? They have to keep a 5,000 as required reserve. So their total required reserves will increase by a 5,000. That is the answer number for the first one. Second one is asking what about their lending ability? Their lending ability will increase by how much? Their lending ability will increase by the amount of excess reserves they have. So from this 50,000, 5,000 went to make a nug. The remaining 40,000, 45,000 gets added to excess reserve. Under that 45,000, they can lend. So now they have a lending ability of 45,000 more. So then which one is your answer? Answer number. Not that hard, no? Manageable, shape. So those are the past papers that you have, Lama, from credit creation. Sometimes you just get a little bit scared when you hear this word credit creation. I feel it's not that hard. What you can do is, Lama, if you want to product do even better, and if you're still not very, very sure, you can do, Lama, the old past paper questions. So there are questions starting from around the year 2000. You can do that. I would have sent the past paper class group, fast track people in your group description, those old past papers all are there. You can refer. The others, I will send it on the past paper class group. You can have a look. Okay, right. So then with that, we'll call that off on the MCQ. We can take a small break and then we'll come to the essay questions. Right? MCQs, all right. Okay, how did y'all do, guys? Just to overall to see how out of 2020 again, I think there were 19 MCQs. How much out of 19 if you mark? At least, I would say at least half of it right. If you've at least got around 10 of it right, I think you're somewhere there. Questions are not very direct and babyish ones. So from the 19, round 10 there, you're somewhere there. Figure out the ones that you went wrong, Lamai, see what happened, and learn from that. Good. Most of you have done pretty well. Okay. For the ones who didn't come, I think you all don't know how much. Next time, do and come. Okay, so we'll take a break. Now it's 8:24. I'll give you a 10-minute kind of a break. So we'll take a break until 9:35. Okay, so we'll go until around 10:30. So take a break until 9:35 p.m. Sorry, p.m. never a.m. For the ones who are taking a break until p.m., see you all by. The others come back by 9:35. We'll do this. Okay, so we'll start now with the essay questions of this. Okay, So starting off with the essay questions for credit creation. So there are a few questions. There's around 10 to 15 questions. There are some theory related ones as well, connecting to commercial banks. So we'll quickly go through that. Probably in, let's say, like an hour, we should be able to finish it off. Okay. So I don't think you might have time to do it with me, but at least if you have not done the questions, you can listen and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so starting with Lamai, the 2011 paper, question number 3. They're asking you, what are the principal conditions required for a banking system to create money? For this whole credit creation to happen, Lamai, remember, there are 3 principal conditions or 3 things that have to be there, Lamai. If these 3 are not there, you can't have credit creations. These are the main 3. So what are the 3? One is the banks have to have, Lamai, excess reserves. If there are no excess reserves, they can't give out as anything as loans. No? So that is a definite condition. So that means for the bank to have excess reserve, Lamai, someone has to come and deposit money. So if there are no deposits, then there are no excess reserves. So then that's the first one. There has to be excess reserves. Banks have to have excess reserves. Only then they can give those as loans. Then there will be credit creation. The second one is, Lama, there has to be demand for loans. Now, let's say banks have excess reserve. Banks are willing to give. Banks are willing to give enough and more loans, but no one wants to go and borrow. No one wants to go and take a loan. What if there is no demand for loans? Then also credit creation will not happen. So therefore, there has to be, Lama, excess reserves and people should be able to borrow that as well. So there has to be a demand for the loans. And then give me a second. So coming back, the third one is, Lamai. Now let's say there is excess reserves. Customers take the loans. But what if, Lamai, the customer who takes the loan doesn't go and deposit it in another bank? Now that customer itself doesn't have to deposit in another bank, Lamai. But let's say eventually, now that's a bit of an absurd assumption, Lamai. Now, for example, let's say there is bank X. So bank X gets a deposit of 100 million. Yes, so 100 million, they get a deposit. They keep, let's say, SRR is 10%. They keep 10 million as reserves or 10,000 as reserves. They give a loan of 90,000. So in our process that I teach you, I tell you this 90,000 Lamai has to, person who gets the loan of 90,000 will go and deposit in another bank. Now, practically that doesn't happen, Lamai. If I take a loan from one bank, when will I go and deposit that in another bank? Mama loan එකක් ගන්න because I want to spend that, no, because I want to, let's say, buy something. That's why I take a loan. I won't take a loan of 90,000 from one bank and go and put it in another bank. But what is the logic behind that, Islamai? It's not that that exact person has to put කියන එක නෙවෙයි. Now, whoever who gets this loan of 90,000, he might go and buy something. Let's say he goes to a shop like, let's say, Abans, and he buys a laptop. Okay? The person who took this loan of 90,000 from bank X buys a laptop. So he buys the laptop. Abans who got that 90,000, they will deposit that money. No? Any firm or any person, they don't keep the money with them. No? So Abans will put that 90,000 into that. That is how that comes back to another bank. It doesn't have to be directly the person taking the loan. Person taking the loan might spend it. That people also might spend it. But eventually it will come to another bank. That's the assumption that we make. So now what if that doesn't happen? Then also you can't have credit creation. What if this money that was taken out as loans, they keep it, he doesn't spend. He just keep it in his safe. Or what if that money goes into the non-banking system? What if it goes into, let's say, the share market? What if it, let's say, goes into, let's say, registered finance companies? It doesn't come back to a commercial bank. So that is what you call my currency drains. So you should not have currency drains as well. So if these 3 conditions are met, then there would be credit creation. You have to have excess reserves. Banks have to have excess reserves. People should be willing to borrow. There should be a demand for loans. And whoever who borrows should be putting that money back. That means there should not be any currency drains. So if those 3 are met, then commercial banks can create credit. So those are the 3 main conditions, not anything else. You would have given some other points, but make sure you write these 3. Okay, done. Then we go to the next one. Now you have a big question for credit creation. There's an 8-mark question here. Okay, so we'll see. Part 4, 2011 A levels. I think this is question 6, part 4. They're saying, suppose that a central bank purchases a bond for 100,000 from a brokerage firm. So there is the central bank, there is a brokerage firm. So central bank has purchased the bond from the brokerage firm. In other words, the central bank has given money to the brokerage firm. Now the brokerage firm has 100,000 and central bank has bought the bond. What did the brokerage firm do? The brokerage firm deposits the proceeds in one of the commercial banks. So the brokerage firm who got this 100,000 has come and put that money in a commercial bank. So in other words, there is a new deposit that is coming into one of the banks. So there is, let's say, bank X. Okay. A new deposit of 100,000 is coming into bank X. That is what is happening. So as a result, now they will ask you a series of questions, just like how we did in the MCQs. In MCQs, they ask one exact thing. Here they might ask multiple things. So we'll go one by one. They're saying, what will be the impact of this transaction on money supply? So what is the impact of this transaction on money supply? Does money supply increase or decrease? What do you all think? The central bank has injected lamai. Now money supply is matakada. Money supply is currency held by public and demand deposit. They're asking for the immediate impact. Did currency held by public change? Did any customer deposit or customer withdrew money? Nothing like that happened. Currency held by public, there is no change. But what happened is the central bank injected 100,000 by purchasing a bond, and then that money came into a commercial bank. So demand deposits went up by 100,000. That was the immediate impact that happened. But then as a result, what can happen to money supply? We don't know. For that, we don't know the SRR. Next part that telling you the SRR. So question is asking, what is the immediate impact of this transaction on money supply? You can say immediately money supply will increase. If you want to give a number, I don't think they expect you a number. Can you check the market scheme? I don't think they'll expect a number. But if you want, you can say it immediately, it might increase by 100,000. That is also okay. Is that fine? That's the immediate change. So immediately it goes up by 100,000. Now, if the SRR is 20%, now they are saying, so 100,000 has come to bank X, one of the banks. Now, if the SRR is 20%, what is the maximum amount of additional loans, that is a new loans, that this bank can be able to extend as a result of this deposit? So what is your answer? 100,000 has come to bank X. How much should they keep as required reserves? If SRR is 20%, they have to keep 20,000 of required reserves. That means how much of excess reserves or how much of additional lending can they give? They can give the balance 80,000 as additional lending. Ane baba questions, no? So that's the answer there. So that lamai poddaka lasanta liyanna, right? So I am just writing short forms here to write your answer in a complete form. Okay, then part C. Given the SRR of 20%, what is the maximum increase in deposits in the entire banking system? So because of this deposit of 100,000 that came, right? First, they asked you, Lamai, in bank X, how much of loans they can give. So that is where you got the 80,000. So the first question, Lamai, asked you this. Because of this 100,000, how much loans can this bank give? The part C is asking you, because of this 100,000, in the entire banking system, how much of loans would be created? How much of deposits would be created? How much is that loan? That is where you should have the deposit multiplier. So if SRR is 20%, how much is my deposit multiplier? All of those working show how you calculate deposit multiplier. Put all of that pen. Don't skip those. So SRR is 20%. Your deposit multiplier is 5 times. You all know that. So then this 100,000 would have cost total deposits of 500,000. And total deposits in the banking system. That is part C. So product, show your workings and all and so on. And then part D, Lamai, is asking, would you expect this to happen? Do you think, Lamai, in reality this happens as it is? Do you think this 100,000 that came in, Lamai, will exactly become 500,000 at the end? In reality, it won't. There could be multiple reasons, Lamai. What could be your reasons? So in reality, Lamai, you can even think of the assumptions of credit creation and those conditions for credit creation. All of that won't work as it is, Nilamai. So do you think the banks will, okay, now one of the assumptions of credit creation is Lamai, banks will only maintain the required reserve. Do you think banks will only maintain required reserves? If a customer comes and deposits 100,000, do you think they will only keep 20,000 okkama loans then or kiyala? No, banks will always keep excess reserves, Lamai. So you can say, so why will this not happen? Banks might maintain Lamai excess reserves. Banks maintain excess reserves. What else? Like you all said, there could be currency drains. Do you think, Lamai, whoever who takes a loan, that money will again eventually go to another bank exactly fully? No. They might keep it in the form of cash. They might put it into a finance company. So there could be currency drains. You can talk about that. Then, Lamai, do you think there is consistent demand for loans? Do you think every time Lamai, a customer comes and uh, every time the bank has excess reserve, do you think every time there are people coming and asking for loans? No. So there could be no consistent demand for loans. Consistent demand for loans. You can say that. Then yes, you can say public cash withdrawals. That is also okay. And then Lama, you can even talk about the SRR changing. Now, what if in the middle central bank comes and changes the SRR? Then your multiplier and all of it will change. So then 100,000 won't become 500,000. So you can talk about those things, Lama. Okay, those are a few things. You can put around 4 points and you can talk about change in SRR. You can talk about withdrawals. And withdrawals and currency drains, I would rather combine it as 1 point. And then you can write your answer. Done. So that's question number 6, part 4 of the 2011 A-level paper. If something like this comes, Lama, I will be a little disappointed because I feel this is a little too easy. I mean, this is 8 marks, just basic things that they have asked you. Out of your 20-mark essay question, there are 8 marks here. I feel it's a bit too easy. I always like a bit of a challenging, bit of a difficult paper. I know challenging, difficult paper is hard for you all. It's hard for me also. But the results are good. Even I remember my last year, 24 batch paper. Once they did the paper, 24 batch also, the paper is good. It's not a very easy paper. It's a good standard paper. I wish that is the same story with you all also. They don't reduce the standard. It's a good standard paper. Right. So then after the paper, people come and tell me, and then they tell, right, some questions you predicted came, this and that they tell, but then overall, some of them tell it's hard. Right. So even I remember the people who got really good island ranks and all. So I usually have some idea on who might get a good result here. So usually when they also test, some of them told it's hard and all. Right. But then when results came, these guys have an island rank. So the harder the paper, Lama, remember your Z-score will be good. So that's the good thing. So if you get a very baba type of a paper, Lama, Z-scores are aparad. Z-scores will actually go down. So if you are a smart fellow, pray for a hard paper. So for a hard paper, if you get 80 out of 100, that would be more worth it, Lamai, than getting 90 out of 100 for an easy paper. Yeah. You need to understand that. You will get your A. Whether it's a 80 for a hard paper or whether it's a 90 for an easy paper. Usually students want the 90 for the easy paper. Students will come and, sir, I did everything, sir, okay, right. But overall, everyone else also has done it right. Then your Z-score isn't much. But you feel like, you're in the border of the ASL paper was hard. Let's say you got, 78 or 80. Just a little bit more than the 75 mark. But your Z-score would have been very high because others are very much lower than that. So we don't know. So right, we'll see. But what has been the trend in the recent years from 2022, 23, 24, Lamai, they haven't made the paper easy. They haven't made the paper very hard. They have kept a good standardized paper, and the paper itself has the amount of memorizing and doing has reduced as much as possible. So they don't directly ask you, what is this inflation rate of Sri Lanka? What is this? Questions very low, Lamai. So that memory type of things are not there. 2013 definitely would have had very high Z scores because the paper was hard, econ. So people who would have done econ would have had a very high Z score in 2013. But then the point is, at that time, in around 2013, everyone would have done econ because everyone does the same three subjects: econ, BS, accounts. So then there would have not been a Z score advantage compared to another paper. But now sometimes instead of econ, some people do IT. Instead of BS, they do IT, they do stat, they do, now only you have all these different what about other subjects, that is it. So what's the story? Right, then coming to 2012. And so 2012, assume that one of the commercial banks in the banking system has a cash reserve of 200 billion, loans of 800, deposits of 1,000. Prepare the balance sheet. Easy. So balance sheet lamai. Now balance sheet properly draw. Don't draw this T account. T account you can draw, but label it properly, right? Balance the balance sheet, show all of it. So part A, when you're preparing the balance sheet. So you all know lamai. Remember, this side is the liabilities. Now, because the question itself is telling you to prepare the balance sheet. You're not making a rough balance sheet. Then this side is assets. Then you have reserves of 200. So you can maybe say in this one, rupees billion. So reserves 200, loans 800, deposits 1,000. Now balance the balance sheet also because the requirement itself is to make the balance sheet. So balance it and so 1,000 on this side, 1,000 on this side. Give that down. That's part A. Part B is saying if the SRR is 12%, what is the largest loan it can make? Now we are not sure what are they asking for largest new loan or largest total loan? So we'll give both. So if they have a SRR of 12%, can you tell me how much is their required reserve? From this 1,000, they have to keep a how much? From the 1,000, they have to keep 120,000 into 12%. That means 1,000 into 12 over 100. They have to keep only 120. How much have they kept my actual reserves? Based on the balance sheet, they have kept a 200. That means how much do they have in excess? They have a 80 excess. So this 80 is what you can give out as new loan. So you can say the largest new loan, right? The largest new loan this bank could make is a rupees 80 billion. And then now you're not sure, no, are they asking for new loans? No, are they asking for total? So then you say largest new loan it could make is 80 billion. And as a result, the total loans would then be how much? Right now, already they have given 800. May 80 ekak dunna nang, how much will the total loans be? Right now they have given 800. If they give this 80, the large total loans would be 880 billion. So you can answer that question that. So whether they are asking for new loans or total loans. Now, when you are writing essay questions, be smart. Sometimes if you're not sure what they are asking, write it both ways. Say, menda mehema vunanang, it is this. But however, if something like this happens, then it is this. So you have to be smart when writing your essay questions. So now, don't take the risk. Now, for example, when they ask you what is the largest loan it can make, now when you're sitting in the A-level exam hall, right, this is where the question comes. Now, you're not sure. Largest loan it can make, are they asking for largest new loan? Or are they saying, should I add that 80 and say largest total loan then? You're not sure. Don't take the risk and write only one line. Write both, but write both, you have to explain both. Not just say 80 and 880. So you can say, largest new loan this bank could make is 80 because they have excess reserves of 80. And if they give this out as loans, then the total loans could become 808. So then, and you have given your words and explained. So then whoever is marking your paper knows, whatever the marking scheme says, you will get your marks. So be smart when writing answer. Then 2012 answer question number 4. What factors could cause the actual expansion of money supply to differ from the one that is given in the deposit multiplier? So let's say deposit multiplier says if this happens, this will multiply 10 times. But it doesn't happen in reality. No? The same thing that you wrote here, Lamai, is what you can write. banks will maintain excess reserves, right? So therefore, even though deposit multiplier says it will multiply by, let's say, 10 times or 5 times, actually it won't happen because banks will maintain excess reserves. There could be currency drains from the banking system. There could be no consistent demand for loans. The SRR can actually start changing, right? Then you can talk about any withdrawals that happens from the bank. So yeah, any of that can happen. So you can write about all of that. The same thing they're asking again. So here you'll have to give around 4 points, Lamai. And I would like the points don't have it like very short points. Product 1 point could be like Lamai a 1 to 2 line point. So our A wage give around 4 points. Now these things Lamai, once you all practice writing the answer once, then done anything. You have to keep on repeating. Okay. Moving to the next one. Now, this question, Lamai, I think is not there in your tube. Yeah, in the tube that I sent. I have missed this question. I just realized today morning when making the slides, I remembered I haven't put the 2017 question near the kilo. Can someone just quickly check, Lama? I think from 2012, after that time coming 2017, can you all open your past paper book soon? And I'll give you 1 minute. Check, Lama, from 2013 to 2017. That means check the papers from 2013 to 2016, right? Paper 2. Question number 6. Just quickly go through the questions and see if there's any credit creation question. Have I missed anything? Because in the tute, I haven't put. I'm just wondering if I missed anything. Quickly check. 13, 14, 15, 16. Is there any credit creation question? 13, 14, 15, 16. Any calculation, any theory, anything? Okay. So I'm guessing there is no. 2013, sixth question, part 4. Okay. Can you tell me what that question is? 2016 part and 16. 13 and 16. Right. So let me share the main tute and shall we get into that? Sorry, I think I would have missed those questions, Lamai. Would that give me 1 second? Let me share the main past paper tute that I have, the one with all the questions. I would have probably put that into another category. I would have put that into maybe monetary policy or something. Maybe is it connected to like monetary policy also? Whatever those questions that you are saying, 2013, 2016. Is there a monetary policy connection? Does it talk about any currency drains withdrawals? You can combine and put as one thing. Is it something with monetary policy or is it directly credit creation? It's monetary policy now. I would have put it somewhere else also. Second. Okay, this is the full past paper tute. Okay, so we'll look into this. So you all told me there's a question in 2013 and a question in 2016. Okay, yeah, so we'll product check that. 2013 high-powered money. This one. So this one, Lama, this is not really credit creation. That's again a good thing for you all to figure out. So I'm guessing you all told me this question, 2013 question 6 part 4. Is that what you all were referring to? Yeah. So this one, Lamai, this is a money supply related one. This actually comes in the first part of unit number 7. It looks very much like credit creation. So this is not a credit creation, Lamai. This is the money multiplier story, right? How does money supply change when there's a change in high powered money? Remember, this is not credit creation. We'll do this part, Lamai. This is in the first part of unit 7. The first focus area, demand for money, money supply. It is that. 2014 is there one. Objectives, credit cards. No. Then you all told me 2016. This also same story, Lamai. 2016 part 4. This also is not a direct credit creation question. This is again money supply, money multiplier story. Okay, so I'm guessing those are the two that you all pointed out. Fine. This is money multiplier, not deposit multiplier. So I will leave it there. I'll go back to my slides. Right. So then the next question, that means in so many years, they haven't asked, no? In so many years after 2012, the next time they have asked is 2017. I think this 2017 question is not there in your tute. You can product, make a note. Okay. So we'll come to this. So I remember, Lama, this is the question I think I would have told you all also multiple times. The question that I did in A levels, and I got this wrong. Right. So 2017 A levels, question number 3. The balance sheet for a commercial bank is given below. So they've given deposits, reserves, treasury bonds, loans. They're saying if the SRR is 10%, what is the maximum amount of new loans that this bank could make? The first part I got it right. The second part only I got it wrong. Things. No, second. So, right, have I typed the? Okay, fine. So how much is the new loans that this bank could make now? If the SRR is 10%, that means from your deposits, you have to keep Lamai 180,000 into 10%. That is key. You have to keep Lamai 18,000 as required reserves. How much have you kept in your balance sheet, Lama? You have 100,000 of actual reserves. That means how much do you have excess? That is what you can give out as new loans. Now you have to keep only 100. Sorry, 18. You have kept 100. You have 82,000 worth of excess reserves there in your banking system. So then amount of new loans will be equal to this. So you can put the write that nicely and explain. Okay. Now they're saying if 10,000 million of deposits were withdrawn from this bank, what is the maximum amount of new loans the bank could make in the future? Now, what if they withdraw? First, you have to change the balance sheet. Tell me, if a customer withdraws 10,000 lamai, first will now change this balance sheet. How much will deposits be? There were total 180,000 deposits, taking 10,000 customers withdraw karanam. How much do we have now? Your deposits would be 170,000. And then lamai, they are withdrawing money. Money is going from the bank safe. The money that the bank has in their safe is called reserves. So reserves, they had 100,000. Now how much will they have as reserves? Now they will only have 90,000 as reserves. And that part is what I missed lamai in my A-level paper. Right? They have 90,000 as reserves. Then treasury bonds and loans, will that change? Treasury bonds will be 40. Loans will be another 40. Those don't change. This is what happens when a customer withdraws money. Remember that. So when a customer withdraws money, you reduce deposits, you reduce reserves. Reserves is the money the bank has in their safe. So now based on this, they are asking you how much of new loans can the bank make. So now tell me, Lamai, now how much should they keep as required reserves? Now they have deposits of only 170,000. So then required reserves are 170,000 wali, they have to keep lamai 10%. How much is that? They have to keep 17,000. How much do they have as actual reserves? Balance sheet, new balance sheet. They have 90,000 as actual reserves. That means lamai, how much is the excess reserve? That is the one they can give out as loans. No? They have to keep 17,000, but balance sheet has 90,000. So how much more do they have? They have 73,000 more. And that is your answer. So that's the point there. So not that I did not know this lamai, I made a product careless mistake. I would have told you, I remember during school also, I would have taught so many friends, I would have taught them credit creation. But then in my A-level paper, I actually got this part B wrong. So that is because lamai, we are human. Right? So you might be the smartest person in class level. You might be the fellow who gets 100 out of 100. But in your A-level paper, lamai, you might make a careless mistake. You can go there. Why do we reduce it from reserves, lamai? Because reserves is the money that the banks have in the safe. It has to be a double entry in lamai. So if the customer withdraws money, so deposits willing 10,000 plus the now bank has had 100,000 reserves. Reserves mean the money they have in their safe. So if a customer withdraws, that means now they have to give that money from the safe. No? So now safe figure, you don't have 100,000, safe figure, you only have 90,000. That is what happens. Okay. So back to my point. So you will make careless mistakes. You will have a lot of things here and there that might go wrong. But as long as you're calm during your A-level paper, you will get it done. Small here and there, body careless mistakes will happen. That is natural. Sometimes, for MCQ, you might mark the wrong one. For accounting, some addition, you might do something wrong. So those kind of things can happen, but that's okay. All of us are human. All of your people who are writing A levels in your batch are just normal human beings, just like you. So people will make mistakes. So the person who is lucky enough to make lesser mistakes and get things done will become the top people in the island. So like I always say, if you can come among the top 200, top 300 in the island, you're equally as good, right? It's just that, some Z score problems can, some subjects, some Z score advantages are there. Some, you might make a careless mistake or two. It's a small thing that you don't know. The island first and the island, let's say 300 person. It's not a big gap. Yes, the first would be. I'm not saying the first is bad. The first is very good. But it's just that there is not a big gap between the first and 300 line. Maybe let's say it's around 5-6 marks of a gap overall in total. If you take all the three subjects total out of 300 marks, maybe let's say not 5-6, maybe a little bit more. Right? But within that 5-6 marks, different subjects, different Z scores, all of that might start affecting. So that's where it goes. Okay. So then moving to the next one, 2018. 18, question number 3, part 6. Guys, remember this money and banking, all of these are question number 6. So if you are finding it later, the following is a simplified balance sheet of one of the banks in the commercial banking system. What is the required reserve ratio? So here, they have given you, instead of giving you total reserves, they have broken it and given as required and excess. So that means total. Usually in your paper, they will say reserves 15,000. The reserves 15,000, then they have, what they have done is they have broken that itself and given you as 10 and 5. So then they ask you, what is the required reserve ratio? Now you have deposits of 100,000. From your deposits of 100,000, you have kept 10,000 as required reserves. That means what is the percentage that you have kept, If you want to find percentages, 10,000 out of 100,000. That is, what is the percentage? You don't have to do all of it. But what's the percentage there? That's a 10% that you have kept. That is answer number part A. SRR is 10%. Then part B, assume a customer withdraws 2,000 million from his current account. By how much will the bank's reserves change based on this withdrawal? So remember I showed you in the previous question. So if a customer withdraws 2,000, what happens? Deposits will fall by 2,000. Your total reserves will also fall by 2,000. Now, we'll take the reserves as a total value. Instead of taking that excess and required decima separately, we'll take it as total. Total, there is 15,000 reserves. So what will happen? If a customer withdraws 2,000, deposits will come down by 2,000. Your reserves will come down by 2,000. Okay. If you can break it and tell me, now, so now your deposits, now how much is your total reserves? Now your total reserves, right, will be so this is before you had 15,000. Now you will have 13,000. So before, how was this 15,000 made? Based on your question, based on the numbers given, required reserves were 10,000. Excess reserves were 5,000. That is how now we got total reserves of 15,000. So I told you here, total is 15 here. How did I get this 15? By adding the 10 and the 5. So now I am saying total reserves will only be 13,000. Because when a customer withdraws 2,000, then 15,000 will go to 30. Then how can you give me the breakdown for this and this? How much would be required? How much would be excess? Think, how much of deposits do we have now, There were total deposits of 100,000. Customer withdrew 2,000. Now how much of deposits do you have? Now you have deposits of 98,000. So if 98,000 is your deposits, SRR is 10% now. how much should you keep as required reserves? How much should you keep as required? 98,000 deposits. You had 100,000, customer withdrew 2,000. Now you have 98,000. From the 98,000, if 10% is required reserve, that means Lamai, your required reserve is a 9,800. So now you have total reserves of 13,000. From that, if 9,800 is required, then the balance has to be excess. So how much is the balance? The balance is 3,002. So you can see required reserves fell by 200. Excess reserves fell by 1,800. So overall, your total reserves fell by 2,000. Now that is what happened. So if I am to show you in the previous question, based on the balance sheet, what happened here is Lamai. This is what happened. So there was this whole thing. The customer withdrew. No? So when the customer withdrew, Lamai, this 100,000 became a 98,000. Okay. Customer withdrew 2,000. So this 100,000 became a 98. Along with that, 2,000 reduction on this side means there has to be a 2,000 reduction on this side. So how did that reduction happen? This 10,000 became a 9,800, right? 10%. This fell by 3 to 1,008. This became 3,200. So this fell by 200. This fell by 1,008. And that is your new reserves figures. So since the question is breaking and giving lemma, you also can break and give. So you can say because of this withdrawal. Now you can write your answer nicely. Lemma. Say because of this withdrawal, total reserves will fall by 2,000. But as a result, now this is your new required reserve. This is your new excess reserve. So required reserves have fallen by 200. Excess has fallen by 1,800. And that is what? That's done. Then part C of the question is saying, assuming that the SRR is unchanged, what is the maximum amount of new loans the bank could make after this withdrawal? So what is the maximum amount of new loans level? Maximum new loans is how much of excess reserves do you have? So that we calculate in part B also. How much do you have? Now you have only 3,200 excess. So maximum new loans they can make is 3,200. That's the excess reserve. Fine. That's a 2018 paper. Again, I feel a manageable 6 marks, not hard. I would like if your paper actually has one of this because you can actually get the full mark, because the calculation based one, unless you are very bad at it, don't do. But as long as you know the basics, you can actually get the full mark. Okay, then going into 2019. So 2019 question number 4 again, part 6. Suppose a bank customer newly deposits 10,000 in his current account and the required reserve ratio is 0.25. What are the, so here instead of giving a percentage, they can give it as a decimal. So 0.25 again, 25%. So what are the required reserves for this new deposit? Disappointing. So if you put 10,000, your SRR is 0.25 now. That means 25%. How much should you keep as required reserves? 2,500, right? So 2 marks out of your 100 mark paper was for a Baba question like that. Then what is the maximum amount of loan that the bank can grant on the basis of this new deposit? So because of this new deposit of 10,000, they are keeping 2,500 as required reserve. They are asking you how much of, because of this, how much of a loan can you give? So how much of a loan can you give? The balance 7,500 you can give. And that is your answer. So I'm not writing this word by word. That's your answer. I feel it's a very disappointing 4 mark question. And make it 4 marks. So maybe I would have given 1 mark and 1 mark. Or maybe I would have combined both of it and given a 2 mark. I would have asked you what is the amount of required reserves and how much of new loans they can make, and I would have given 2 marks there. 4 marks for a question like this with 2 marks. Okay, so coming into 2021. Okay. 2021, there is a bit of a theory question they're asking you. What are the factors that might affect the money creating credit creating potential of the banking system? So what can create? The main points you can write down. So main things are, you can talk about the demand for loans, right? Then you can talk about banks' willingness to keep excess reserves. Then apart from that, now demand for loans also depends on whether your customers are creditworthy. Sometimes now every joker wants to go and take a loan. But just because every joker wants to go and take a loan, my bank won't give loans. No, customer has to be creditworthy. He has to have a good credit rating, have a proper salary. You should be able to repay the loan. If I go and I just ask for 100 million loan, bank won't give me. Bank will say, how are you going to repay the 100 million? You don't even have that much of income. You don't even have property under your name. What do you have? So I have to be creditworthy to get the loan, Lamai. Just because I like to get 100 million loan, that doesn't mean there will be credit creation. If I had to be credit worthy to get that loan, right? So you can talk about there has to be deposits in the bank. But because if people don't deposit then how can banks give out loans? Right? So you can say the people's preference for currency can affect. Remember, there was a MCQ. So if people prefer to keep currency with them, then banks can't give loans. So you can talk about that. Then the currency drains that we talked about. Right? You can talk about, yes, maybe a financial knowledge. I would connect it with one of this. Maybe, something like financial knowledge. I'll connect this with deposits and the demand for loans. Both of these points can connect. So if people have financial knowledge, then they will know how to go and deposit money. Because some people, rural people, they don't even want to go to the bank. They don't know how banks work. And whatever cash they will put inside their Almera, Goyari and keep. They don't even know how to go and take a loan, what documents to give. So then, yes, that can have an impact. But I would, since it's not directly there in the marking scheme, I would rather connect it to one of the 2 points. Okay. And then even the central bank's monetary policy, how much do they charge as SRR and all of that. So any 4 points could be things that you can actually write. So this I copied and pasted from the direct marking scheme itself, the original A-level marking scheme. So we'll stick to this. Okay. Then the next one. Now, 2021, now this is not credit creation, but since this credit creation part comes from commercial banks itself, I will cover this as well so that we don't have to worry again about it later. They're asking, how does a commercial bank manage its asset structure in pursuing 2 conflicting objectives? So you all know, commercial banks have 2 conflicting objectives. One is they want to increase profitability. The other one is they want to increase liquidity. Now, what is this asset structure? Why are they talking about some asset structure when they're talking about this objective? Now, in your tute directly, you have no. If you try to increase now, when customers come and deposit money, if you keep all of that money in your safe, that means if you keep it in reserves, then your liquidity is high. If someone comes and asks for money, taggala you can give. But then if you keep all that money in the safe, no profitability. So let me explain the conflicting story. I'll write it over here because I don't have space. So if a customer comes and deposits 100 million, right? If you, let's say, give all this money as loans. Now, theoretically, you can't give all, but let's say majority you give out as loans. So if you give most as loans, then what can you say, what will happen to your profitability? What do you think? So let's say right now in Sri Lanka, SRR is 2%. 100,000 came, 98,000 malama you gave out as loans. So you gave out as loans, you can earn interest on that. So your profitability will increase. But what if this customer comes tomorrow and asks for this money? What about your liquidity? Do you have money to give the fellow? Your liquidity will be very low. So under conflicting lamai. Now, same way, what if a customer deposits 100,000 and you put most of it you keep in your safe, right? Safe means you keep as reserves. So then what can you tell about your profitability? If most of the money that customer came and put, you kept it in your safe, you can't earn anything from the money in your safe. No? Your profitability will be very low. But if you keep the money in your safe, what about your liquidity? Tomorrow, if the customer comes and asks for the money, your liquidity will be very high. So these are conflicting objectives. Now, commercial banks want to increase profitability also. They want to increase liquidity also. It's very hard to do both. Because if you try to increase more and more liquidity, then no profitability. Try to have more and more profits, then no liquidity. Then how does this connect with the asset structure, lamai? So if you look at a commercial bank's balance sheet, I'll go back to a balance sheet, a simple balance sheet. So now this keeping this as reserves, this is liquidity. So this is the asset side of it. If you keep the money as reserves, that is liquidity. If you go and invest it somewhere, give out as loans or put treasury bonds or something, now that is profitability. Right? Profitability. Okay, that is how that works. So when you get your deposits, if you put entire thing as reserves, lamai anna liquidity high, no profits. If you put most of it into, let's say, treasury bonds or loans, profit is high, no liquidity. That's what they're meaning by that asset structure. They don't get scared. So you need to say, look here, commercial banks have two conflicting objectives. One is to have profits. The other one is to maintain liquidity. So they will want this all, they will want this also. And that story what I explained Lama is what is that. So this is the original marking scheme answer that I got from the marking scheme and copy and paste it. If you all want to take a screenshot, but if you all have the marking scheme, you can rip. So I'm not going word by word by word. So how do they manage this Lama? That is based on usually the bank manager's experience. Now, then how do you know if a customer comes and deposits, how much do you keep as reserves? Do you give as loans? So how it usually works is the bank managers with all the data they have, they have experience. They know, usually, let's say a commercial bank, Mount Lavinia branch, they know for a day, this is the amount of deposits that come. This is the amount of withdrawals that people take. Usually is the amount of loans that we give. So based on that experience, they keep like a buffer also maybe, and they will keep a set of money. And they might know, okay, for example, let's say commercial bank, Peta branch. So Peta branch might be a very busy one. So many small shops are depositing, taking money. So then they might keep a little bit of a different asset structure. Maybe compare, let's say, a commercial bank in a very rural area in Sri Lanka. Let's say in Manao or somewhere. Anna, it might be a little different there. So Anna, it might have things like that. Okay. Right. So then we come into the 2023 question. That is the last question that we have. This is one of the most disappointing questions that I will ever come across. Okay. The question, they give you a big build-up with a balance sheet and all of it, and they ask you a nothing type of question for 2 marks. They've given you this one. They've given you demand deposits. They've given you capital, reserves, loans. They've given you building also. If the SRR is 10%, what is the amount of excess reserves does this bank have? If you've not fallen asleep, can you please give me an answer? How much of excess reserves does the bank have? They have demand deposits of 2,000. SRR is 10%. They only have to keep 200 as required. So how much do they have as excess? Your required reserves is a 2,000 into a 10%. So that means you have to keep only 200. Actually, you have kept Lamai a 500. So how much is your excess? Your excess is a 300. That is your answer. One more learning point that I want to give you all, Lamai. Now, what if instead of now they have given you demand deposits here of 2,000, but what if along with that another line item they have given you savings deposits? How do you do the question then? Let's say, Lamai, this demand deposits 2,000. They have also given you now instead of, let's say, capital 1,003, let's say capital is 1,100. They have given Lamai savings deposits. Sorry, capital, I'll make it 300. Capital will make this, I'll cut some numbers. Capital, I'll make it 300. And I'll put a savings deposits of 1,000. Do you have to calculate SRR for savings deposits as well? Now you have usually our question has demand deposits. Let's say they give something called time and savings deposits, 1,000. Is the SRR applicable for that as well? Yes or no? Remember? What do you all think? Now, if they give you a question like this, demand deposits 2,000, savings and term deposits 1,000. Now what is the excess reserve? Remember, Lamai, SRR is not only on demand deposits. SRR is whatever deposits. So the only exception there is, Lamai, there is that also they are going to introduce foreign currency deposits. This NRFC, RFC deposits. For that, if I am not mistaken, there is no SRR yet. So I think there was an IMF. I remember reading something like that. One of the IMF recommendations was for those NRFC, RFC accounts also make sure that that also is subjected to that SRR thing. But apart from that, everything else, like demand deposits, savings accounts, the fixed deposits, everything is subjected to SRR. So by any chance in your paper, they try to make a change like that. And just instead of demand deposit, they also give you savings deposits, fixed deposits, all of it. Remember? So now if there is question like this, Lama, if it says demand deposits 2,000, savings deposits 1,000, then Lama, your required reserves will be a 300. So you have to keep SRR for all your deposits, not only for demand deposits. So usually in your common but just I'm telling you, in case it shows up, be a little careful. Okay, that is what that is. Clarify, do we multiply excess reserves when we want to find total loans? Total loans, what I would say is follow this thing. So take the initial deposit, right? Multiply this by the deposit multiplier, get the total deposits. Okay. And then from that total deposits, find how much is reserves, the SRR percentage, the balance as loans. I would say follow that approach. That is more easy. Initial deposit, come to the total deposits, multiplying by the multiplier, and then see how much we. Okay. Right. So with that, then we can call things off. That is the end with then maximum loans. So maximum loans will then be the balance, whatever excess reserves they have. I'm just saying, if you're calculating required reserve has to be on the total deposits. So usually in your paper, they give demand deposits only, but let's say they give some other line items like saving deposits and all. So SRR has to be calculated on that. Yeah, SRR is common for all deposits, correct. Okay, right. So that is all the questions from credit creation. Fast track people, how are you all with the thing? Your doubt clearing session, Lamai, for all the doubts and I will take it on other class. I think it's a little too tiring today. So in terms of unit 7, fast track people, wrap off all the unit 7 work today. So that next class, you will move into unit 2024. I think there is no credit creation question. Okay. So then we'll wrap it off. For those who have any small questions, you can definitely stay and clarify. Others, I will fast track people. I'll see you all on Monday. Others probably next week, Friday. See you. Bye bye. Welcome.